Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Weight management tips. Hey, everybody. We've got a weight management tip again for you today. First, I'd like to start with an email, actually finishing the email from listener Pete. He said, your weight loss preparedness topic is more timely than ever and maybe a good line to follow. The GLP-1 medications have captured tremendous interest in the wake of their profound effect sizes and weight gain loss. And there may be a typo here, but I believe he's saying, and weight gain lost that was gained during COVID, myself included, lol. So thanks, Pete. In fact, this is sending me down a rabbit hole. I had been looking at GLP-1 for a couple of years now, and I'm going to make it a topic. So coming up on one of these Trends in Science days, we will in fact do not a deep dive. We've got 10 minutes, but we will do a look at GLP-1, including not just the meds, but some nutrients that may actually affect incretin production, right? GLP-1 production. So stay tuned. But today we've got weight management tips. In fact, we're going to talk about goals a little bit more. We've already talked about some of the calculations, but they're just necessary when you try to figure out the energetics, right? The ins and outs of weight loss if you're going to have any type of realistic goal. As I've said in the past, if you think like a scientist, you can make weight loss and fat loss happen. But you have to accept some of the fairly grim realities of it. Let me share some of these with you. I once wrote an article that I've mentioned before called 100 Workouts. The idea there is if you exercise, let's say you get on a treadmill 45 to 60 minutes before breakfast every weekday, so 5 days a week, it's going to take you 20 weeks to get through about 35,000 calories, right? 3,500 times 10 pounds of fat is 35,000 to get through that much. Obviously, it's going to be affected by your body mass and how steep the treadmill is and all that sort of thing. But do the math, use ACSM calculations if you want. You will see that if you're between, let's say 70 and 90 kilograms, if you're a very large mammal, you're going to burn more calories. But you do it for an hour, your heart rate, your target heart rate is maybe in the 120s as far as beats per minute. It's going to roughly come out to about 350 kcal or so for a good long uphill cardio session. And again, I'm doing this and saying walking because then we're directly oxidizing fat. I've said it before, there are many ways to skin a cat. You could do interval work and all that kind of stuff. But I was always sort of old school bodybuilder, right? Do it before breakfast. Don't get drained with stress and stress hormones and glycogen depletion and all this stuff. In any case, so 20 weeks for just 10-pound loss. That's just from the exercise. Now, obviously, if you add in restriction at the mouth, let's say of about 20%. Again, I'm painting with a broad brush just for sake of argument here. So you're going to cut your calories about 20%. What does that mean? So that might be 500 or 600 calories if you're a healthy male and you need 3,000 calories per day. That might be 400 to 500 if your needs daily are 2,000 total. Okay, so again, you're talking about roughly 500 cut off of a normal diet of 2,000 to 3,000 calorie needs. This 500 number makes it easy too, because if you do that every single day of the week, that comes out to 3,500 calories, which is roughly what's stored in a pound of fat. So in addition to that half a pound of fat loss that you're burning off with those lengthy treadmill sessions before breakfast, you're actually adding another entire pound lost because of what you're restricting at the mouth. And as you've noticed lately, we've been looking at literature that really compares the effect of exercise versus diet. Diet is where the drama is a lot of times as far as the magnitude of change. How might you get rid of that 500? There are some ways to do this fairly painlessly. Like if you drink whole milk now, you could switch to skim. Let's say you drink 2 cups. That'd be maybe 200 calories you're knocking off-ish. Maybe you put a tablespoon of olive oil in when you make stir fries at dinner time. Instead, just use pan. Do pan searing instead of pan frying. Definitely not deep fat frying. And then you're going to knock off another 250 calories, let's say. And again, go do the math if you want. 14 grams of fat, in a tablespoon of oil, it's 140 calories each times 2. You get the idea. So switching your milk fattiness down 2 notches if you can, cooking with Pam or some type of cooking spray instead of oil. It might be something like I've talked about in the past, folding in half of your pasta as fibrous veg. That'll knock off 20 or 30 carbohydrate grams, right, in each cup, if you will, of cooked pasta for a total of, maybe 100 calories knocked off per serving. So just by getting leaner in your milk intake, right, or even if it's alt milk, right, not cow's milk, whatever it might be, being very cognizant of the amount of oil in a pan, obviously not eating deep fat foods or sugar bomb beverages, those sorts of things. In fact, I'm a big fan of just taking the first month out of a 20-week period. Again, it's grim. 20 weeks is, 24 weeks even. You're talking about half a year. But just getting that diet behavior in place. Like every time that I go through a drive-through, I'm either not going to have it because I'm going to have something between the car seats that I had planned, or maybe I'm just going to do something like get the grilled chicken sandwich, with no goop on it, something like that. Just getting used to being cognizant of your diet. In any case, with everything that I've just talked about with 10 pounds of directly burned fat through the cardio, another 20 pounds through restricting fats or carbs in some combination. Those are your fuels. That's 30 pounds lost. That is a tremendous amount. Most people wouldn't need to lose that much, again, unless they're a competitive bodybuilder or something trying to get down to extraordinarily low body fat. So you want to get ripped like that. That's what I mean, that it's a grim 5-month process, arguably. And that's why it always frustrates me when people say they want to get in bikini shape for summer and they start in April or May. Well, you should have started in January, frankly. In any case, most people are going to decide how much they want to lose. It doesn't have to be 30 pounds. When you look at recommendations, and these are science-based, would be that you might want to get 5% to 10% of your current weight off you and then hold it there for a while. Don't even try to go beyond that. So if you're a 150-pound person, that would be 7.5 to 15 pounds. If you're a 200-pound person, that's 10 to 20 pounds. So that's what we're talking about. And as you notice, those numbers are not the 30-pound I was just talking about as far as getting ripped from someone who might be starting at, let's say, a 15% body fat or something like that. Now, you've heard that before, I'm sure, that don't lose more than 10% before you purposely plateau and maintain for a while. For the longest time, because of individual differences and other things, I used to lament, how long do you have to hold it before your set point starts to say, this is the new me? Well, I still have not seen a definitive answer, but I did find a paper from 2018 that, again, is pretty grim here. This is from Redman et al., Cell Metabolism 2018, and it starts off with the term metabolic slowing, right? And the title also covers calorie restriction. I'm not going to read through the whole title. It's a mouthful, and it's more about theories of aging. But look at this quote here, or listen to this. It says, in the calorie-restricted group, energy expenditure measured over 24 hours or during sleep was approximately 80 to 120 kcal per day lower than expected on the basis of weight loss. They're alluding to what I call the restriction contradiction here. Anyway, lower than expected, indicating sustained metabolic adaptation over 2 years. So metabolic adaptation doesn't sound too bad, but not when you're adapting down into this slower metabolic rate, if you will. This metabolic adaptation was accompanied by significantly reduced thyroid axis activity. Again, I've talked about that before. Findings from this 2-year calorie restriction trial in healthy, non-obese humans provide new evidence of a persistent metabolic slowing accompanied by reduced oxidative stress, etc., etc. Anyway, there are some numbers for you. The idea really here is just to have an example that you can work from for yourself. Again, if you're talking about a half a pound a week fat loss with direct fat oxidation in a mostly fasted state, let's say before breakfast, add in a 400 or 500 calorie deficit, maybe 600 if you're a big eater to begin with. Not too much, because you're going to crush yourself into a restriction contradiction at that point. But, and again, choose that number. Is it 5% of your body weight now? Is it 10%? 10% is a nice even number. It might be a little dramatic. Again, that'd be 20 pounds in a 200-pounder. 200-pound person. Anyway, so you also would want to think about the process as well as the outcome goals, right? Or you might say the short-term versus long-term goal. So your short-term goal that focuses on process is get on that treadmill every day for at least 30 minutes. You got to start somewhere before breakfast. And don't get fast food. Put the box of fiber cereal or something between the seats of your car instead, or maybe a protein snack. That's it. Focus on the process. That's a win. If you layer on weighing yourself, let's say every Saturday, just on the weekends, make sure that you are on that 0.5 pound to 1 pound loss during the week. Now, it could be water fluctuation, other things. I wouldn't panic after 1 week, but after 2, you could be moving astray. You could be going off on a tangent. You're not meeting the short-term goals that are necessary to get to that total overall loss of, let's say it's 10 or 20 pounds. In fact, I once edited a book on protein and exercise that Phil Stevens was actually on the cover, but a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, John Mike, he wrote a chapter and he sort of co-opted something that he and I had talked about for the longest time and put it in this book, this protein and exercise book from CRC Press, and that's the arrow chart. So I've done this with weight gain and weight loss, but if you put your body weight at the top of a sheet of paper, you draw an arrow down, and then you put your target weight there. So let's say it's 5% or 10% lower than it is now. And then you cut that in half. So like the 10-week mark is in the middle, and then you cut those halves in half. So you get these 5-week signposts and 2.5-week signposts. Now you've got it set up where you know where you are as far as meeting those short-term goals. You've got the process goals down. Is the scale moving? You need to know that, because if you're missing more than one of those short-term goals, let's say the 2.5-week one, after you keep cutting this arrow in half to get these little notches, signposts down toward your goal weight, something is off and you're going to have to adjust. Remember, metabolism is dynamic. You might have to restrict more or crank up the exercise another 15 minutes, something like that. These are just practical numerical examples to help you with some of those goal-setting principles, right? It has to be specifically defined, even quantified. It has to be realistic, right? Acquirable. It has to be time-bound. Those sorts of things. So I hope that helps a little bit of the sometimes grim realities and numbers that are involved in setting up goals that are specific enough that you can reach. We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, this is Lonnie Lowry here to tell you that nutritionradio.org is not only backed up on YouTube. You can search Lawnman07 from within YouTube if you can't find it through the nutritionradio.org search, but also on iTunes. Please consider giving us a review. We're brand new on there, and it really helps with them noticing us and getting this, ranked and that sort of thing. And of course, you can find us on Spotify, Audible, /Amazon, all of those sorts of outlets and podcasts, wherever you get them. So thank you. You are appreciated. The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.